Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or real estate. And it does it with the host of the program, Barb Schlinker, owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, I know many people ask you questions when they're getting ready to sell their homes. What are the top questions that home sellers should be asking before they put their home up for sale?
Well, Richard, right now, the way the market is, unless a home is really underpriced or really special, it's taking 4 times longer to sell a home. And there's a lot fewer buyers just because of the affordability issue. So, it's more important in than ever. It's more really like a buyer's market now that they get those four things right, pricing it right, preparing it right, and making sure you hire an agent that knows how to promote it right. Some people just don't, and that's okay. Maybe they don't study it. But let's talk about some questions that should be asked when you're talking to agents. First question would be, how do you help me prepare my home for sale? We do this with all of our clients. We'll give them tips. Sometimes I give people that aren't my clients tips, but we'll take a look at it. I actually have an interior designer look at it. I don't just use me because I'm not as artistically wired as a designer would be that could see things that I don't see. So we'll give you really good ideas on how to get ready for photo day because we don't want your home to be repelled by the photographs. And then we'll, of course, give you a good idea on what price range your home will sell for and how much you'll put in your pocket. The other question I get very frequently is, what's my home worth right now? So some sellers base their value off a lot of different things. They'll base it off of what the tax assessor says it's worth. The only problem with that is that the tax assessor is supposed to be 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years behind the current market. And guess when that was? That was the middle of 2022 when the prices were a lot higher. There were bidding wars on everything, both between buyers and investors. So it was kind of an artificial high that took place, and the tax man jumped in on that and said, "Oh, we're going to reassess your value. So you're paying taxes now on a value that probably doesn't exist anymore." It's softened a bit since then in most cases. At the end of the day, the buyer decides what they're going to pay for a home. Um, but some agents will, all they can do is use empirical data, which is similar sales that have sold. The problem with that is when you have a market softening or correcting, that data is old data, right? You have to look at what's trending right now, what homes are getting contracts right now to make that decision properly. So we make sure we provide really empirical, excellent data that gives a seller a really good idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work. As an example, we just helped a home seller in the Black Forest area that they initially priced high, and he had a logical idea on what it was worth based on square footage or what it costs to build. It wasn't market value. It was just a kind of like what he thought based on his own logic, right? And so it didn't work. And when they finally did lower the price, the first offer we got was really a buyer that could not perform. And that buyer's agent didn't give us all the information, and I said, okay, so this is contingent on your client's home selling. I can provide offers for that home so that you can buy this one without a contingency. She was not interested. She didn't even want to present them to her client. And then I said, so where are you going to price that home? She goes, well, I don't know. I'm like, what? You don't know? And she goes, but it's really pretty and it has granite and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. And then a week later, it goes on the market. And no kidding, Richard, that house was at least $150,000 overpriced in my estimation. Now, wouldn't that just make you mad if you just took your house off the market for something that couldn't possibly sell?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you are in tune with the average person, whether they're buying, but especially if they're selling, and you look out for them. It's fiduciary relationship. Yeah, that would anger me.
Yeah, but fortunately that deal fell apart because they asked for a little too much on the inspection and they wanted to get back in under contract, but I said, I don't, now we knew what price they had priced their home. And I said, I just don't see it happening, not while we're still kind of young. And also, I can call the lender and see if it's possible for them to buy it without selling their home. And the answer was no. So we moved on. I found the buyer for the house out of the 6,300 agents in this Pikes Peak market. I was the only one that brought him a buyer, and it closed and everything went fine. It really requires the perfect setup of preparing your home for sale, pricing it right, making sure it's promoted right. And don't just rely on, you can look at the pictures and of course you're going to like them, but have a friend and family look at it. Have them give you a real critical look at those pictures and make sure that's right, because that is your first showing online. Buyers are deciding whether or not they even want to be bothered to come look at your home based on those pictures. And picking the right agent is absolutely critical. And what we're seeing right now is a big increase in the average days on market. Back during the boom, the average days on market might have been, you know, 10 days, 5 days, 11 days. It was really, it was like a week, right? And now it's in El Paso County, the average days on market 100 days, Douglas County 103 days, Teller County 146 days, and very similar for Pueblo. So what does that mean? That means that if you need to sell now and you don't want to wait for the average, you might want to price it very aggressively. The other thing that we're seeing, which I believe some of this is seasonal, is the pending sales have dipped. So we just came off the three big holidays, basically. A lot of people have plans, traveling, all that kind of thing. So I think there's going to be an uptick in sales probably sooner than we think this year. And here's the problem with pricing and looking backwards at historic sales. There's a massive turnover in the number of people in real estate that are in the business as quote professionals. 87% of the agent population get out of the business every 5 years. Okay. So if you look back on the last 5 years, overall, the market's been pretty good. They've never seen a market correct like it's doing right now. And honestly, I don't think they know what to do. So they're telling their sellers, oh, don't worry, your home is worth this much. Sellers think they're the experts and they know what's going on. They put it on the market and they wait, and it just doesn't work. So about half the sellers are reducing their price right now, and the rates are still up a bit. They're about little over 7% for conventional, maybe 6.5 for VA and FHA. But in general, if you're on the market's going to give you clues immediately. If you don't have any showings, you're at least 6% overpriced, probably more. If you're getting lots of showings and no offers, you're just a little bit off, maybe 2 to 3%. If you're getting some offers, but they're not good offers, you're probably off by 2 to 3%. And if you go 10 days without showings, we miss the number. It's not right. Or you miss the number if you're doing it right now. Or if you're getting low offers, you miss the number. So you want to motivate all the buyers out there to make an offer if it's the right home for them. And so don't be surprised right now that the offers are coming in with strings attached, like higher closing cost, because the buyers can ask the seller, they might pay the asking price, but they'll say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, will you cover 10, 20,000 of my closing costs so I can buy down the interest rate and have a lower payment? So the other thing that I've seen before recently was some of the agents really don't know, as a buyer's agent, how to realistically manage expectations. So I had an agent that asked for huge concessions, seller agreed to that. Then they brought in a roofer to look at the roof, and the roofer gave a bid to replace the roof. And she goes, oh, this is such a good deal for a new roof. I'm like, okay, great. So seller filed a claim, and the insurance company said there's nothing wrong with the roof. So we had another opinion on that, because usually insurance companies are not as motivated to do that. So I brought in a roofer that I trust, and he's going to tell me if the roof needs replacing or not. He looked at it. He goes, the roof is fine. So now we're like, well, wait, what kind of game are you playing? You go in and just throw out a bid for a roof and tell your buyer to expect a roof. And it was that caused the deal to fall apart. because she didn't manage expectations properly and actually gave a fraudulent bid to try and get stuff for her clients. So we're going to check on those things. And if the buyer was all in, she would have understood that, but it didn't happen that way. Another thing that can derail a contract would be a contingent sale. Meaning you have to wait for your buyer's house to sell before they can buy yours. And that's okay to do that if you don't have any other choices. And as long as you've done your due diligence and verified whether or not that home is going to sell. And that's kind of iffy right now in this market. So another question we get a lot about is, why should I stage? Is it important to stage? Why can't I just show it empty or whatever? And really, you want the buyers to visualize themselves in the home. Make it like a model home as best as you can. You don't want your house to be eliminated based on the online photos. So that's what we help people do. So give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb, we're discussing the top questions that a home seller should be asking when they're getting ready to sell their home. Everyone knows that I've been recommending you for years now. Tell us, what are some key questions that a home seller should ask from a real estate agent?
Well, I would ask them how many. I think a good question is, how many homes have you sold? You know, um, a lot of agents don't want you to ask that question. Another good question would be, what do you know about what's the difference between assessed value and market value and appraised value? We had an appraiser say my house was worth that much last year. Is it worth that much now? Those are good questions to ask to see what their working knowledge is. And then another question I get pretty often is, how long of an agreement should I sign with you? A lot of people feel committed once they sign like a 6-month agreement or something like that. You're not necessarily committed. There is a cancellation clause in the state contract if the agent is not performing to what they promised they would do. But there's not a whole lot of promises in the state form. So you just want to have that discussion if that's important to you, and be able to make a change if you think they're not the ones helping you get the home sold. And then you also might want to ask about, what about showing the home? Some agents will tell you, oh, the home's got to be available all the time. Whenever somebody wants to show the house, you got to drop your stuff and get the kids and dogs and go. Not necessarily. I don't believe in that. In fact, I think a home that's more exclusive, less available to be shown, is more attractive, because the buyers really want to get in. And that's who you want. You want a buyer that really wants it. So I think you have to make it work for your schedule. That's one thing. But in general, you can expect that most buyers are going to try to look at the home over the weekend time period. So just at least be ready for that. And then we help people kind of make those decisions. So we sit down, we do a free in-home consultation on what to do, what not to do to get your house ready for sale, go over all the closing costs, and give you a really good idea how much you'll put in your pocket when it sells. Just give us a call. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice. That's Barb Schlinker, host of the program, and with your home's hold guaranteed realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, call Barb, 719-301-3900, or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Or if you want that free report, top 10 questions to ask before you hire a real estate agent, go ahead and visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Go to the green button. It'll be in the upper right-hand corner. It says free reports. Click it there. When we come back, we'll be discussing the top 6 seller mistakes that can cause a home not to sell, plus Barb's hot new listings. You don't want to miss those.